And I made the beef.
She had something.
There you go.
I'm gonna cry.
Don't you cry. Well, if you cry if you want to.
I'll laugh and cry. Just
Go ahead. Yesterday. They don't know half of
Oh, it wasn't nothing compared to this.
Oh, you're a doll to me.
Uncle Jim's not here to you and him to play. She always sit on his lap and him and her played with each other, you know.
Yeah.
Pulling the ears. And,
I licked him because he used to lick mother.
yeah, he did.
He would look at that. He would lick mother. Whatever a big thing like You think I can?
I can't get
There's a lot of noise.
Long ways for a little freer.
Mine was 2.
Hair.
Wouldn't it? No.
So I figure, I'm subject to it since I'm.
Yeah. Good to see you. You did. No, you're good. You're fine. Yeah, Carolyn and Stock Bailey. And pretty much hit the road. Who was third? Yeah. I guess it's been a while. I think I'm back in that attorney, my brother. Fixed it, 350. And 2 weeks today, I'm like.
Dad bought a new Ford Crown Victoria, and he hadn't had a wreck in 20 years. And he's had 4 wrecks this last year.
Thus far, my blazer has been good. And then I called my dad.
Blazer. You didn't see it, man. Bad week for New York, ain't it?
Why you trying to make me do it? How you doing?
How you doing?
Yeah, doing. It's kind of nice. I'm showering.
I still wear my Mexican wedding shirt.
I enjoy this window.
Ah, got your picture.
Start her.
Right, here you go. Here you go, Rick.
Oh, don't break on me. I would be so upset. Oh, don't even think of it. Just go to the store.
That's why you stand side
I would tell her. Why?
She'll be down there doing that.
Ah.
Down there doing that.
Okay. Okay. You pull my legs. That's all you can do, Lane. He's heavy though.
I think you're doing tumbling. He's about as big as you are, isn't he?
That's right. It's their turn.
Oh, I'm fine, thank you.
Don't you know that is?
I guess then I've got some, that's a so dope. Balance.
How are you? I like your house. Under here? Did it go under here? It's probably, I think it's lost. I like your new house.
This is the second that your house
I can see her not being able to find that. You're right, absolutely, yeah. I'm playing video, each other's video. Yeah.
I see these guys. $40,000. You don't lose too much on that.
And I had, I can do a lot of I don't really worry about that. And I do a lot of, go down wade fishing for trout.
Oh, do you?
Oh, yeah. I love it.
Look here, give me a hug for the camera.
Okay,
There you go.
Jack,
There you
that's
go.
on.
Dresses on mine so that I can.
Jim,
Right.
and so that's how,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. Well, we have
that's
twins.
the twins.
Oh, I didn't know
Jimmy,
that.
Joe, and Leela and Lola.
Yeah.
Yeah, Sam and Jason.
All right, let's. I didn't say that. I did not say that. I did not say
He
that.
wants you to hire him.
We'll bring spouses, then we'll get the next generation.
All right.
All right.
Hey, hey,
We're waving. Yay. This is as good as it gets.
this is action. This is action. Glad you got all this, Jenny.
Is this the royal Hey, I can only do one thing at a time. This is it.
All right.
Okay. What's next? No, really, that's great. Pretty. Okay. One more. Sammy, I finished now. That one's out. You got me stuck. I didn't have to choose. Choose right away. Yeah.
What?
Our patio.
Don't smile.
You can see that's what I was talking to Mom about that. She's trying to convince me to come stay with
Are we supposed to smile now?
Yeah, you're always supposed to
This is
smile.
hard enough.
All do it. Julia Chef.
Got stills over here and here, so you might. What is that, Kevin? Who's going first? Kev. Here we go.
That breeze feels good. Now I'm smiling.
Hey! I got an idea. Why don't the back row put the little hands on the shoulders of the one in front of you?
It's too hot to put
The one you're
hands on
married
the
to.
Now,
Just
why
the
don't the back
shoulder.
row put their hands over their eyes with the ones in front? Oh, goofy.
You turned your head.
Well, I don't know which way everybody's looking.
Why don't you get over here and take it from the middle? Oh, get over here and take it.
You did it!
That beautiful teacup.
Okay, I got it.
Is there a back row down here?
Sit there, babe. Okay. Are we ready for the
Close.
Get everybody.
Adam, you gotta move in.
1, 2, 3.
I'd rather dig.
Y'all can't move yet.
We're dying over here.
And I'll stay under just a minute.
Some of you don't need anymore.
Yes. If we stay here, we'll.
Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Pricilla. Happy birthday to you. We love you so.
I hope I deserve that.
Oh, I think maybe so. It's questionable, but we think maybe so. Stay over here while you drink your Sprite, okay?
Okay, one of the things that if you could just tell me what you remember about the day each one of the different kids was born. When Bobby Lee was born, if you remember anything about that.
Yes, I remember when Bobby was born. We were all living over there, you know, close to the railroads. And the dummy line was between our house and where Bully Adela lived. And the night that Bobby was born, she was born at home. The doctor came to the house, and it was a little cool weather. I don't remember what month Bobby's birthday's in, but anyhow, it was a little cool. We had a fire in the heater. So the doctor came, and me and Bully was there, and Bobby was born. And yes, I remember very well. She cried that night. Me and Bully didn't get any rest. We had to take her up and, try to keep her from crying. But she was hungry. And this is so funny. You've heard of sugar tits. Well, you want to hear it all. Well, she has heard, I'd heard of sugar tits. And so she cried and she was hungry. And so my aunt had told me how to make a sugar tit. And, you know, you take some sugar and some water and a little clean white rag, and you put the sugar in there and put a little water on it and just let her suck it a little bit, and she gets quiet and go to sleep. Well, we'd put her back on the bed. This was all night long. Me and Bully stayed up with her, just me and Bully. And then she'd wake up and cry. Well, Bully'd go get her out of the bed and bring her in there by the heater, and we'd give her the sugar tit.
Now, was this the old place, the bank?
Yeah, I don't know whether that house was there. I don't know how long the house that she was born in was there, but it was right next to the railroad. And the railroad was between our house and her house, their house. And so we laugh about that yet. Now, when Bobby does anything, I say, "Oh, honey, you're so sweet." She said, "Well, I'm paying you for the sugar tits." She, next morning I went home, she got quiet and I went home. And so Bully and her made it from then on. Bully and Della made it, because Bully was good. He's a good hand, you know, with babies or doing anything in the house. We laugh about that, you know. And I think about that a lot when I say something to Bobby. She says, "Well, Auntie, I'm paying you for the sugar tits." And that was one main thing. And of course, we didn't have cars back then, and we were together a lot. I mean, we couldn't go, and you know, and me and Jim didn't have any children. That was way before Lucy was. I say way before, several years before Lucy was born, I guess. Well, I say several. I must have been about 3. And Bobby was the only baby. And we just thought, she's a stuff. And Sammy, she had the prettiest. Her hair was black, of course, dark, straight. And she was the prettiest little round face. But we thought that Bobby was the stuff. Well, then after Lucy was born, Bobby has laughed a lot, said she just didn't like it at all, because when Lucy was born, because she didn't get all the petting. Me and Jim petted Bobby so much, and she was the only little one in the family. And
well, tell me about when Lucy was born and where that was.
Well, she was born in Columbia, the first year of the Columbia Hospital, Caldwell Hospital they call it. It used to be over
the... Dr. Causey? Or...
No, it was Dr. Carroll.
Dr. Carroll, I think he was the same one that brought me into the world.
Yeah, I think he was, Sammy. I believe he was. And that...
How long were you in the hospital when she was born?
I stayed there, I think it was... I think I stayed about 5 days. And when I went home, you know, I was able to have gone in a car, but me and Jim didn't have a car. And Dr. Carroll got the, the ambulance to take me and Lucy home.
Is that right?
Yeah. And
now where were y'all living?
We were living over there, the same place that we'd been living, you know, where we were living when Bobby was born. And, but I know I thought how nice it was, you know, that he did that. And Lucy cried too. She was hungry, but didn't have somehow or another. Yeah, we managed. I never did make her what they call a sugar tit, but we was living over there then, and Bobby said she remembers that she just couldn't hardly stand the idea of another baby being there. She wasn't getting all the patting. So Bobby has just been kind of, you know, she was the only baby for a while, and she did get all the petting.
And so then I guess I was next.
I believe you was. Yeah. Little John Billy was next.
Well, that's right.
Yeah, your little brother. And then you. Yeah.
Yeah. What do you remember about when John Billy was born, or what?
I don't remember very much because he was born. He was died at birth, didn't he?
Was that there at the hospital? Or?
Yes, I believe it. I'm not sure, Sammy, but I believe it's the same hospital that Lucy was born, and probably you.
Yeah, I was born there.
Uh-huh. Was you? Was that when the hospital first opened, and it was over the what was over the drugstore or a bank or something? Went upstairs.
I don't know.
I
thought it
but
was.
I think I'm sure it was the same hospital. Mm-hmm. Yeah. But it was Dr. Carroll, was Lucy's doctor, and I forgot what doctor delivered Bobby. I can't remember now, but anyhow, he came to the house, you know, out to the house. To
Tell
their
me a
house.
little about what you remember about Ira.
Oh, Ira, he was a little short man, and he was.
Thanks a lot, Ira.
Oh, he was good. He was a little short man, and he was so active in church. Now, the church doors open. Mr. Banks was going to be there.
Now, where was church? Was that
at Kelly? At Kelly, at the Methodist Church at Kelly, and he could do any part of it. You know, he could get up and make talks or anything, and of course he went to prayer meeting, regardless, and he went to church regardless, and had to walk back them days, you know, and and what I remember about him, I loved him. He was cute. He was a little man, and he walked real feisty. Yeah, he walked real feisty. I loved him.
Did he talk fast or slow, or?
Well,
did he talk a lot, or was he pretty quiet?
No, he talked. And he was kind, very kind. I loved him. He was so. Well, I loved Granny too, because she was just as sweet as she could be. But Ira was always there. I didn't call him Ira, but that was his name, you know. I called him Mr. Banks. Oh yeah, me and Mr. Banks, we farmed, you know. And Jim would have to. We went to the Clark's to buy our groceries, and usually that. I'd go buy our groceries, and they would buy their groceries at the same time. And sometimes we'd get the groceries, sometimes they would get the groceries. And so I remember that me and him went to buy groceries, you know. And this is funny. You may not want to hear all of this.
I do. This is great.
You know, back then, if women wore pants, they were looked down on. Well, didn't work outside, but Jim bought me some overalls. And so we got ready to go to town, was going in a wagon, and just me and Mr. Banks, from the old Banks home to Clark's, you know. And I was going to go buy our groceries, and he was going to buy their groceries, you know. And I wore my overalls to Clark's to get the groceries. And there was, I remember, Mr. Banks didn't care, but a lot of people, you know, just thought that was terrible. And let's see, it was Miss Banks's daddy his first wife had died, and he was living with this Granny Matt, somebody. You may have heard him talk about Granny Matt, but anyhow, she was up in years, and she was at Mr. Banks's, Miss Banks's, and when she told me me and Mr. Banks fixed to get on the wagon and go out and get on the wagon to go to Clark, she said, well, you're going to be talked about. Said, because that's not ladylike to wear overalls. Well, it hurt me, and so I thought, well, Mr. Banks didn't say anything about it, and Miss Banks didn't say anything about it, and he didn't care if I wore my overalls down. But I think about that a lot, and at times have really changed what they used to be.
Oh, they have.
Yeah, and so I love to go to town with Mr. Banks. He's a big talker, and he was just as good to me as he could be, And of course the girls, they were teaching then. Leela and Lola were teaching, I believe, at Kelly. And they had a little one-seated car that they drove to school. But he was very, very good. And Sammy, I don't know whether you know this or not, but when Mr. Banks died, he died in the hospital at Allah. And you know what he was saying, what he was repeating when he was dying?
First, he was repeating the Lord's Prayer.
The 23rd Psalms. 23rd Psalm. The Lord is my shepherd. And he was going through all of it. And me and Jim, I didn't stay in the room, but I was up there a lot with him at night. But I believe Jim was in the room with me. I think Jim was in the room with him the night that he passed away. But I think about that a lot. Yeah. And she said Daddy was repeating the 23rd Psalm when he died.
What do you remember about when I was born? Were you there? Or?
No, I wasn't there. We were living over there, but you had been born by the time I knew it, because we didn't have phones to call.
Right.
And I guess Leela and Lola still had their car, or maybe your dad and Leela had a car.
Well, he was in the service, yeah.
Uh-huh.
At that time.
Oh, yeah. I believe Leela was staying with Granny and Lola.
She was.
Uh-huh, yeah. And they took you one time. I took her one time, and so it was false alarm and came back. And then in a few days, they had to go back, take Leela back. And that, you had, well, they did. And so you got there that night. I remember that.
I see.
Uh-huh.
What do you remember? I guess during that period of time, we lived down at the old place with Mom and Aunt Lola and Grandma there. Were you and?
Yeah, you remember the little house that used to be the kitchen dining room they pulled off to the side for John and Leela to live in when they married?
Oh, that used to be the kitchen?
That used to be the kitchen dining room and the back porch to the big house. Uh-huh.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay.
When they married and moved out there, they moved the kitchen and dining room, just moved the whole thing, pulled it back.
I've heard them talking about
yeah, they did.
logs and
Yeah.
mules and rolling
Uh-huh.
out there.
Uh-huh. And did you know when we lived at the plant the first time and we had to vacate the house to let somebody else have it there at the plant, and we moved in that little house and we lived in it.
Did you?
Me and Jim and Daddy lived in that little house, and Lucy.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and Lucy when she was little.
Well, that's the earliest memories I have.
Uh-huh.
I have
But we just
memory of a little heater or something in that house and putting my screwdriver, my gaga in it.
Yeah, yeah. Well, they had a fireplace in it, too. There was a fireplace in that house. It was once the kitchen and the dining room and that. Wait a minute, I'm telling that wrong. There wasn't a fireplace in that. No, they did have something. Was a heater, I reckon, somewhere in there, and the fireplace was over on the side. I remember now, and outside wall, but It's
Well,
that's
tell me about the first car you and Jim got.
oh, let me see. Sam, it's been so long, I forgot. I have forgotten, and no, I don't know how in the world we got that car or what kind of car it was. I really don't. But I remember the little old Willis truck that we had for, well, that was after Lucy was born, that, it's just a little narrow truck,
Yeah,
a little truck. You remember? Yeah, I remember that. What kind of car did we have first? I don't know whatever kind of car it was. I thought we was rich. We had a car.
Tell me what life was like in LaForest, Texas, and about
Oh, different, altogether different from here. And the weather's different, and everything's different. Climate, dirt, a lot of dirt, blowing dirt, sand,
Well, I remember
sunshine, no
when we came
trees.
out to visit y'all that time with Aunt Lola and Bobby and so forth, and I was in about the 7th grade. It was sure the most different place I had ever
Yeah,
been.
it was so different, and I dreaded going out there, and we moved out there, and everything was strange. The country was strange, and I was just lost. And I remember I just wasn't happy at all, and of course Jim knew I wasn't happy, and I wanted. Of course, that was a job. He had that job, and he said. I said I didn't like it. I didn't like it one bit. And I remember him telling me, well, honey, I can't quit this job. This is a job, and I've got it, and I can't quit it. But I'll tell you what I'll do. I'll go back to Louisiana and make arrangement, find somewhere for you. You know, my daddy lived with us.
Right, I remember Uncle Charlie.
Yeah, you do?
Oh,
And he
sure.
said, I'll go back and said, I'll move you and Grandpa, he called him Grandpa, I'll move you and Grandpa back and let y'all stay, and I'll come back out here and work. I said, no, honey, I can't stand that. And he made me very quickly realize that I wouldn't be happy back home, you know. I called it home.
You didn't want to make.
And I wasn't going to leave him out there. No, I wasn't going to do it. And so I grew up, and I said, well, honey, I'll be all right. No, I'm not going. I said, that's one thing we're not going to do. We're not going to leave you out here.
Well,
And I got to loving it.
Yeah, what would you say has been one of the biggest strengths of the Banks family?
Well, Sammy, I don't know. They were a close family. There was a lot of love in that family. Of course, they were all as a kind of a big family. I never was used to, people. I always was kind of alone by myself, And I remember Jim saying that they all talked a lot. And I remember Jim laughing and telling people, well, Pricilla never had been around a bunch like us, a loud bunch, and a bunch that talked all the time, and said, we all get to talking and maybe getting to arguing a little bit, and said, she'll go off and sit down to herself. Yeah, they used to say that about me and Bully, too. Bully and me would say, they said when they get loud like that, said me and Bully'd kind of get off to the side.
Well, Della, she could sure be. I remember that.
Oh, yeah. Big-hearted. Oh, Della was the big-heartedest. And Bobby is just like Della, big-hearted. Her heart is so big, it's nothing that she wouldn't do for somebody.
She was quite a cut-up.
She sure was.
She really was.
Yeah.
What would you say, Aunt Pricilla, after 89 years is one of the most important things you've learned, or some wisdom that you would pass on to the rest of the family?
Sammy, as I've gotten older, I have a feeling of contentment. And it's just, I don't know, it's just, the Banks family was good to me. They were always good to me. and I loved them, and I just don't know. Of course, you know, the Lord helps us.
Amen.
And I just feel, and I'll tell you something else. Jim meant a lot. We all have our failures and faults, you know, we all do things, but he was always so good to me. And the whole Banks family has always been good to me. And it's just...
Do you remember a couple of stories about my dad, maybe?
Oh, yeah. Your dad and Jim, they were close. They loved to do things together, and they would hog hunt together. They loved to hog hunt. Yeah, they had a lot of fun together.
I've heard some of those stories.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. They had a lot of fun together, and they were very close. And I remember before we got a car, when Lucy was little, Leela and him had a car. And when something gets the matter with Lucy, well, if Jim was tied up in the field or something, John would take their car, your daddy would take the car and take me and Lucy to the doctor. And one time she fell or something when she was about 2 or 3 and knocked her shoulder out of place. It popped out of place, and of course it hurt and everything, and we didn't have a car, and I remember Jim was plowing in the field, and he called your daddy, and as Sue said, she needs to go to the doctor, said, can you take her to the doctor? He said, yeah, I'll take her to the doctor. And we carried her to Dr. Carroll. Dr. Carroll pulled her shoulder back in place, and we thought everything was made, you know, and we was coming home, and it popped out of place again before we got back home. We had to turn around and go back to the doctor. And and just things like that. And
I know he was quite fond of Lucy. She was something special.
I'm going to tell you this, too. He was the first person that kissed her. He loved he loved children. He really loved children. She was born, Jim, they told, was coming down the hall to bring her to the room to me, and Jim was sitting in the waiting room with Papa, and so they were all coming, but I don't know, John had got there first or something. They met the nurse in the hall with Lucy in his arms, and he looked at her and kissed her. I remember he told somebody, I don't know if he told Leela who, he said, if I ever have a little girl, I hope she'll look like Lucy. Well, Diane does, in a way, you know, that,
a lot of family
yeah, the hair and all, yeah. And the kids loved Uncle John. They loved him. Mm-hmm.
Well, I appreciate you taking time.
Well, I know there's a lot more and some that I wish I could remember to tell you, but there's a lot of memories there.
There are.
And John and Jim did. They had... and your daddy could sing. Did you know your daddy could sing?
He had a good bass voice.
Mm-hmm.
He could really go sing good.
Yeah, he could sing. Of course, you knew Mother could sing. You knew your mother could sing. Yeah, she and Lola could sing. Used to sing at church. And do you know your grandfather, John Hargrove? You know, Alton's dad?
Yeah.
Did you know he could sing? He used to go to singing conventions and sing. Oh, Sammy, you didn't know. I wish you could have heard him.
He used to go to singing conventions?
He would go to, used to have singing conventions on certain Sundays, you know, in the parish somewhere. And everybody'd meet, and they'd have the singers all around come and sing, you know, just local people, but could sing. And yes, your granddaddy led, I think he led the singing at Kelly in the Baptist church. I think he did. But he could sing.
Well,
Oh, yes, Sammy, he could sing beautiful. He sure could. Uh-huh.
Well, tell me a little bit about what church life was like there at Kelly. How many people used to come? Was there Sunday school? What was church
Yeah,
like?
we always had Sunday school on Sunday. And the thing of it is that many of us have cars way back. This is way back. We'd have to walk to church, and we'd go to Sunday school. And your grandfather, Ira, was Sunday school superintendent for years and years and years. And he could teach Sunday school or whatever. He could do any of it. And we'd have to walk to church, but you know, we didn't mind walking. Everybody walked. Just about everybody walked to church. And your granddaddy Ira would leave home every morning before the girls and the family would could get ready to go to school. He'd go to church early, you know, and open the doors and be there for Sunday school when it opened. And he walked, and he walked down the railroad. I can just see him taking off through the pasture to hit the railroad on further down. You know, the railroad went kind of through the pasture, I think, anyhow, close to it. And he'd get that Bible under his arm, and away he'd go with his little brown hat on.
How about that?
Yeah.
Did Grandma Leslie, did she teach in the Sunday school or anything?
This is yours, Rodney.
Let me just stop this.
Well, thank you, honey. How are you doing? Oh, we missed you, but I understand. We can't always get where we want to go. Yes, I know that. Yeah. Talking about Granny, weren't we?
Yeah,
Ain't
I was
Leslie?
going to ask you,
Yeah.
did she teach Sunday school? Or?
No, Sammy, Granny stayed at home. She went to church when she could, but you know, she always had a crowd to cook for. You know, the preachers used to come there and spend the night.
Oh, really?
Over the weekend, Saturday night, you know, and be there Sunday. And then all the Leela and Lola and Jim and Joe and Odell, all, they'd bring somebody home with them from church. And Granny had a lot to cook for. I never realized she had so many to cook for till I got in the family.
How did she cook, and how did she take, it's often been a mystery to me, how she was able to take care of all those kids.
I don't know.
I don't wash in an iron pot and wood stove and do
all that. I don't know. But I wanted to tell you, Granny went to church whenever, if there's anything special and she possibly could, she went to church. You know, and I want to tell you about her. She was the neatest little woman. Do you remember how she looked?
Oh, sure.
Yeah. Well, she was just so, she had to be just so clean. She always wore that hat and gloves to church when she went to church.
She did.
And you know, I didn't know her until me and Jim, I had never seen Granny. I had never met her. I'd seen Mrs. Banks at church, but I'd never met Granny. Because I had moved away. I went when Monroe to school, you know, for several years. And when I graduated, of course, I came back, and of course, me and Jim was getting married. And I had never seen Granny until one Sunday at church, and it was just before me and Jim married. And Granny came to church that day with Mr. Banks and the kids. I say kids, but we were all grown then, we thought. And I met Granny at church for the first time. But she always had, I sent Diane a picture that I had of her with her gloves and her hat and her dress. She's just kind of precise. She was. And cook, she could cook, the best cook. Sammy, I knew some about cooking, but I never had to cook. Of course, you know, didn't cook all the time, and I was young. I learned a lot about cooking from Granny. Wow. And she was so sweet and kind to me. And I always felt like, after me and Jim married, I just felt like that, well, I just felt their love, you know. They were always so good to me.
Well, I know whenever we were down there, you would have to eat something.
Oh, yeah.
Make you eat something.
Yeah, it was good too, wasn't it?
It was.
Yeah.
Bet you for sure.
Yes, sir. It was good. And she cooked had to cook a lot of food.
Oh, my.
And she had this a big stove, we called the range, you know, and it was wood stove. I bet you remember that. You may.
I do not remember the wood
You don't.
stove. I don't quite remember that.
And they had a fireplace in the kitchen and that big stove. That part they moved off, you know, and that we lived in. They had a fireplace in that. That was a big house. Oh, I've got a hand sketch of that house. Have you seen that picture?
Yeah, I think it has.
You did? Well, I got it, and Lucy put it up in my room at the apartment. And people just have fits about it. Just, you know, they want to know about it. You know, me and Jim married in that house. And Mr. Banks performed the ceremony.
Really?
Did you know that?
No.
He wanted to.
Was he a lay preacher, or how did
and well, he was a, what you call it?
circuit? I mean, no.
Well, you know, what is it they call them?
Elder or steward or?
No, he was something, in Columbia he was registered
Justice of the Peace.
There you are. You see how I think. And he wanted to perform the ceremony. He told Jim, he said, if I want to perform the ceremony, he said, well, Joe hadn't married then, but Leela had, and of course Della and Odell. And he said, no, Leela hadn't married then, but Odell and Della had. And he said, I want to perform the ceremony, at least one of my children. And if it's okay with Pricilla and her dad. So he told Jim. And so Jim said, and Jim told me, I said, well, I'm going to tell you what I've heard my daddy say so much, that when Pricilla gets married, I want a minister to perform the ceremony. I'd heard him say that. That's way, way back, you know, when I was young. And I said, I don't know what Dad will say. It's all right with me. He says, well, we're going to ask him. And I remember very well where we were standing and Dad was coming in the house at the steps where we lived, and me and Jim met him in the door. I remember Jim telling him if it was okay with him, if he didn't mind that Mr. Banks wanted to perform the ceremony. And you know, this is what Dad said. He said, well, it's all right with me. Said, I'd rather have him perform the ceremony than a lot that I know. And I said, I couldn't believe it. Dad said that. After he'd been so strict to say, now I want a preacher to perform the ceremony if you ever get married. And I thought, my goodness, things sure are working out for us. So we did. Dad came over to Mr. Banks's, and we married on Saturday night, the 12th of March.
What year was that?
Wasn't that 1932?
Wow.
Yeah, 1932.
Were you present for Mom and Dad's wedding, or? I think Kern married them.
Yes, it was. I think they married at home, didn't they?
I don't know.
I think they married at Mr. Banks's. I think they did.
Probably.
Yeah, I think it was. Yeah, Hearn did marry him. I remember very well, because they were very close.
Was he the preacher at Kelly?
Yes, he was, and they were very close.
Well, you know, when then we moved to West Monroe out there, he was the preacher there at Claiborne.
Falcon, wasn't it?
Falcon.
Falcon.
Thelma.
And yeah, yeah.
Well, I appreciate you taking the time. Happy 89th birthday.
Well, thank you. It's been a great day. It's just unbelievable. I've got things to think about that will keep me from worrying about something else. Yeah. Yeah, it's been a